Hello and welcome to day 3 of the Manifesting Money Challenge. I'm excited that you're here because I know you're back for more. I've been getting a lot of questions as we've been talking about manifestation and money. One of the biggest things that I want you to ask yourself right now is, when in your life has saying the words, I'm broke, I'm cheap, or I'm poor, ever made you either happy? Did it make you feel good? And did it make you wealthy? Did it bring money in? Probably not. So even if this is a new concept for you, even if you're like, I don't know, manifesting money, does this really work? Is this for real? What you're doing right now is probably not working as well as you want it to. So just release any idea of what this might be and allow yourself to just step into it fully, have a little bit of fun with it, and just see what happens. If you're just popping on for the first time, my name is Jen Casey. I am a business strategy coach, and I work with online entrepreneurs who want to go from social media to sales and start making money in their business from a place of authenticity, a place that feels good, right? If you're saying you're broke, cheap, and poor, what is really happening for you, right? It's this idea, and there was a woman in the Facebook group. A woman in the Facebook group said, my husband, how do I get him on board? He said to me, that we're poor. And I was like, listen, honey, don't say we're poor because, we shouldn't be saying that. It's not good to say that. We don't want to manifest that. I'm trying to be positive, be a partner, help me out here. And he was like, I'll believe it when I see it. How many of you have experienced that in your life with a family member, with a partner, with a significant other, where you're you're in this state of growth, you're watching this, you're here, you're listening in, and your significant other wants to tell you, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe your business is going to be successful when it's successful. And, the person who's saying that and has that idea and has that mantra, it didn't come from them. We're not trying to shun or blame them, but it's just realizing that if it feels not good when they say that to you, just realize it's not in alignment with your core belief system. And if it's not in alignment with that, it's a recognition of that you realize that that's not how it works. That you recognize that it's ask, believe, receive. So that's number 1 right here. If you're waiting for the thing, like just logically, right? We're like, oh, I have to ask for the miracle. I have to ask for the great thing. Even if you're going up to a person, I want to interview them for my podcast. I can sit and hope and sit on my couch that they are like, hey, can I be on your show? Wouldn't it just be so much freaking easier if I spoke that to them and said, hey, would you like to be on my show? What do you think the odds are of them getting on my show more quickly? So we've got to make the ask, and to a person, to the universe, declare it. So that's why I'm asking you guys throughout this process to have those little assignments, to do the homework and really start to implement some of these things so that you can really amplify your results. So we have to ask for what we want. And then there's the belief piece. So a lot of you guys are like, well, I want to ask for a 10K month and I want to make $10,000. And then you say to yourself, but look at where I am in my life. I'm broke. My wallpaper's peeling. All of my underwear have holes in them. I'm broke. How can I possibly think that I'm going to make $10,000 this month? There's just too much contrast. Well, that's the second piece of you have to believe. Where is your faith? Where is your surrender? Where is your belief? Do you believe that you have to micromanage every single detail of your life in order for it to be successful? If the answer is yes, say, how well has that been working so far? Okay? And I'm not throwing any shade. That was me. I was like, I'm a perfectionist and I must micromanage every single moment of my life to make sure nothing goes wrong because I want to make sure that everything's perfect and every I is dotted and every T is crossed. And when I finally stepped into that space of surrendering, everything changed. Everything changed. And surrendering is something that I do on a regular basis. Whenever I am in a place where I don't know what to do next, I just go, I don't know. I surrender, and that's okay. And I am asking for guidance and wisdom from my inner source. That's what I do because I no longer have the wall up that's preventing me from divine guidance. When I was trying to say Jen's everyday person, my everyday self, not my higher source, not my higher energy, when I was trying to make my everyday self the be-all, know-it-all, has all the answers, life was like really freaking hard. It was like one step forward, 2 steps back. And it was that mindset that I carried with me. So I just want to encourage you to recognize that faith and the surrender piece, it happens first. And I was not religious, still not really religious, just very, very spiritual and very deeply connected to my inner source. So that's ask, that's believe, and then comes the receive. And you might have mastered those first two. And if you like Abraham Hicks, they have a whole section on just the art of receiving and the art of allowing. Because a lot of people, they're really good at giving, they're really good at asking, they're really good at believing in the process, but they stink at receiving because they don't believe they're worthy of it. How many of you guys have experienced that? Where somebody comes to you and they say, hey Hannah, I would like to work with you and I want to pay you $3,000 for your coaching package. And you're like, what? You want to pay me money? Like, well, yeah, and then you're almost on the phone on a sales call or something with that person trying to, because you just can't believe it, because you can't just take the yes and go with it, because you haven't mastered the art of receiving, you haven't owned your worth yet. And so all of a sudden you're like, you've never gotten the yes before and you don't know what to do with it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? And you almost start talking them out of it. You get on the phone with this person and you're talking them out of the yes. You're like, you need to hear yes like 5 more times just to make sure it's real. But in doing that, you actually, then they're concerned and they're like, wait a minute, so should I not have said yes? And they're picking up on your insecurity and your lack of confidence and the energy that you're putting out there. And they're like, yeah, I guess I gotta talk to my husband. Yeah, I guess this is expensive. You're creating objections and things in their head that they didn't have if you were coming into that conversation not being ready to receive, not feeling abundant in what you have to give. If you're coming in with that fear of, I don't think I'm going to deliver, what if they don't like me, or what if they want a refund, or whatever, just be aware of that. Just recognize it and say, okay, that's maybe where I'm kind of stuck in this holding pattern, and if I can let go of that and release that. So if you can release into that, you can really step fully into kind of the full circle of ask, believe, receive, right? And so the other thing I want to add is, if you do have a partner or you have somebody in your life who's kind of not on board with this stuff and they think it's just woo-woo-ery and they think it's weird and they don't really know what you're talking about, and you just like, you're so excited, you're on cloud 9 because you're like, I figured it out. Like, I have answers now. Like, this makes sense. And they're just like scratching their head. They don't know what you're talking about, where you got these cuckoo ideas from. It's okay. It's okay. And for right now, if that's kind of throwing you off, it's okay to keep these things to yourself and connect yourself with people in this circle right here who are on board with some of these things, who can sit and co-create with you, who can play this game, who can step into this fully and without judgment. So just keep in mind that you can't force somebody into any of this stuff. You can't force somebody to manifest. You can politely ask them not to derail you, and I think that can be a powerful thing. Just like, hey, listen, I really would appreciate if you want to say you're broke, cheap, and poor, that's fine, but I just would really appreciate if you wouldn't speak that way in front of me, and just really honor them by not pushing them into it, and hopefully they will do the same and honor you by not speaking those things in front of you. But it's okay if they do. It's okay if they do, because you own your vibration. No one else. Like, take a moment to just embrace the power of that. You are fully 100% in control of your own energy and your own vibration and your own source. No one else can take that away from you. No one else can take that away from you. You can allow people to, especially if you're an empath. It could be really a little bit more challenging because you're very hypersensitive to energy. But you can stay in alignment. You can allow other things to happen and stay in alignment. That doesn't mean you can't acknowledge people. That doesn't mean you have to ignore everyone. That doesn't mean you can't ever turn on the news and that you have to stay in a bubble of, I can't allow any negativity in. No, of course you can, but you'll know how to handle it. And the more you expose yourself to it with these different ideas going on in your head, the more you're going to learn to protect your energy when you are in the world and when you are dealing with clients and when you are going through this roller coaster of entrepreneurship, right? So you can only be responsible for your own energy and your own vibration. Now, you can certainly hold space for someone else. You can certainly hold space and bring in good vibes, bring in positive vibes for that person, and that's really great. But realize that if you believe this, I believe we all come into our human form kind of knowing a little bit about the journey we want to have. And so they're on their journey, you're on your journey. You guys are doing your own thing and you're co-creating together in this life, but it's up to them to do their work. It's up to them to do their work. And it's up to you to do your work and be on your journey. And there's going to be some winding and some crossover, but you just have to honor them that maybe they're not ready, and you don't have to force them into it. It's not your job. It's not your responsibility to do that. What I do think it is your job to lead by example, because that's the most powerful thing you can do. Instead of do what I say, it's do what I do. So you don't need to preach anything. Just show up, and they're going to notice, like, there's something different about you. There's something different about you. And even a lot of you have noticed that for my own self, just in some of the topics that I've been covering recently, maybe a little uptick in my excitement and passion because I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly up leveling, and I've been getting tons of messages and I so appreciate it. I love hearing it from you guys. You know, it's always nice to give that gratitude back, and a lot of you guys have been reaching out saying like, I don't know what's going on for you, girl, but like, I love the new branding. I love your new messaging. I love these new video topics. I'm having so many breakthroughs because of the way that you are sharing these days, and I love it. And so I think when you start to lead that way, you create that space and give that permission to other people to do the same, right? Awesome. Hannah says, love that. So true. Yeah. So why can't someone be positive? We talked the other day a little bit about how contrast where something's, you know, it's okay to have negativity. It's okay to have bad things happen, quote unquote bad things, because it shows us what we don't want. And that allows us to get closer into alignment. Does that make sense? So we get each other. We're all here together co-creating, right? So, I was saying, somebody was asking, you know, if you're still in debt, how can you be positive? Someone was saying that their husband was like, oh, how can you be positive if we have debt? Like saying, I'll be happy and positive when the debt's gone. And I was like, that's really interesting because really when you crack that open, when we unbox that, by that logic, no one can be positive unless they've achieved everything that they want, which is completely not just counterintuitive, but also counter-habitual of this whole concept of the law of attraction and manifestation. Because if you're not happy while you're manifesting, you're not going to get what you want. And so then you're just on this messy cycle of never being happy and never getting what you want and constantly spinning in the cycle. So if that's what's happening for you, just recognize that. So hopefully that makes sense, because I feel like I'm speaking in riddles a little bit. Yeah, it's a messy cycle. So we don't want to do that. We want to get out of that. So if you're saying to yourself, that's like people, you know, you talk about body love, people say, you know, I can only be happy when I'm a size 2. It's like, well, that's a lot of life. Unless you're a supermodel, that's a lot of time in your life while you're reaching your goals, while you're working toward what you want, where you're going to be miserable. And you know, you guys have heard all those lovely quotes that we see on Instagram, like it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But that's really true. And you won't get to the destination that you want unless you enjoy the process and enjoy the journey and enjoy the growth process of being there. And I think it's important to say that, you know, if you're miserable the whole time, that's a really unfortunate way to live. And feeling good is the whole point. We were talking about this the other day, but feeling good is the whole point. If you get lost on this journey, the only thing you need to focus on is, okay, if I'm thinking about money and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, but I don't have $10,000, just stop focusing on that, because whatever you focus on expands. Whatever you focus on, you get more of. So quickly redirect and say, oh, I don't even need to go digging for the resistance. I'm just recognizing that I'm not feeling aligned right now. So I'm just going to change. I'm just going to go for a walk outside. I'm going to go think of 3 things that I'm grateful for, right? So you're just changing, you're just pivoting, you're redirecting your focus. So that's ask, believe, receive. Ask, believe, receive. The next piece I want to talk to you guys about is acting as if, because this is really, really powerful. So instead of saying broke, cheap, and poor, but it's not here yet, ask yourself, okay, yeah, $10,000 isn't here yet, but what would somebody with $10,000 think? What would someone with $10,000 months, how would they show up in their business? How would they speak about money? Right? This is acting as if. How would they speak about money? And what does a wealthy woman look like? If you guys are not familiar with Denise Duffield Thomas, I went to a really cool little event she did the other day in New York City. And she was like, everybody like look to the person next to you and say, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. And I was like chilling like a villain with that one. I was like, yeah, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. Because I feel very much in alignment with that message. But I'm looking around at everybody else and they're like, like averting eye contact, like this is what a wealthy woman looks like. Like people couldn't say it with power, and it really broke my heart. And I was like, wow, okay, interesting insight here. A lot of these women not really able to step fully into the power and the idea that they are wealthy. And I was also like, hey, the work I do And the place that I'm in, I'm doing all right, because apparently this is not the norm for people to be able to say that from a place of empowerment. So acting as if is really stepping into, and how many of you guys do this already? Give me a yes if you do this, where you act as if, where you kind of almost play a little bit and say to yourself, okay, play like a kid. If you had $10,000 in your bank, what kind of mantras and affirmations would you have? What kinds of things would you say to yourself? What would your business look like? What kind of mentors would you have? What kind of programs would you sign up for? What would your beliefs around money look like? And I think this is a great exercise to write this out. Like, type it in the comments, write it out for yourself, journal about it, because when you start to do that, you're going to start to feel like, hey, that is possible. Hey, that's happening now. Right? And someone else was saying, well, you know, Jen, when I do this and I say to myself, I made $10,000 this month, even though I didn't really make it, but I want to say that I made $10,000. It's like you're putting it out there, you're putting out a rocket of desire, and then you're saying, cancel. I want it, I don't want it, I want it, I don't want it, I want it, I don't want it. And so you feel like you're on this crazy seesaw, and it's because you're creating it with your cancellation of beliefs. So how do you feel like you're not lying was one of the big questions that I got in the Facebook group. How do you feel like you're not lying? I feel silly, she said. I feel like, I don't know, I try to convince myself that I'm wealthy and I start giggling because it's just so not true. So my advice is allow yourself to giggle and dream. Allow yourself to giggle and dream and start there and just keep moving towards what feels good. And if you start to experience that resistance, just change the focus. I remember one of my very first business coaching clients, she was very big into the law of attraction. And I remember one day we went to have a coaching session, and I looked at her, I asked her how much money she wanted to make. And she gave me a real lowball number, and I looked at her and I said, okay, double it. And immediately she started giggling uncontrollably and was like, oh my, you want me to, how could I? And I'm just like, excuse me, miss thing, like, you teach law of attraction. Pardon? Come on now, let's get it. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, you feel uncomfortable, don't you? She's like, uh-huh. I'm like, this is going to stretch you, isn't it? And she's like, uh-huh. I'm like, okay, good. So write down that number because I know you can get there. So another example of somebody, you guys are saying, well, what if I'm paying off debt? What if I have all this debt to pay off? I have student loans. How am I supposed to think about myself as being a wealthy woman? How am I supposed to act as if when I'm got this like weight of the world on my shoulders with all of this debt, with mortgages, with all these bills to pay? So really ask yourself, when you get bills in the mail, what is your immediate gut response? Or when it gets to that time of the month where bills are going to come in, or the day that you write the check for the bill, or you go online, or you see it deducted from your account, what things are you thinking to yourself? This is a really critical moment for you to take your power back. Because a lot of you are sitting there going, oh, there you go again, like the government's taking all my money, they just take it all. Or, oh gosh, that car payment, there it goes again, like my account's just dwindling down every month, just less and less. Okay, clearly that's not serving you, and that's not bringing money into your life. So what I encourage you to do, and this is a fun little challenge for this month, is every single time that you pay for something with a credit card, you go to the store, you give them a credit card. You go to the store, you give the woman cash. You go to pay a bill. I want you to celebrate the shit out of it after. Yeah, I want you to celebrate it. Because when you pay off debt, what is that actually doing? It's getting rid of your debt, which is exactly what you want. So celebrate the shit out of it. Get up, do a little dance party, find a song that lights you on fire. Like, I'm trying to think of a good one. I was going through all of these like early 2000 R&B jams the other night. I was giving my boyfriend an education, and he was like, what are these songs? Why do they all sound so corny? They're so cheesy. But find the songs from like your childhood that just like that summer jam where you used to just kick your shoes off, hang out, driving around with your friends, and you guys would just blast it. Maybe it's Spice Girls, maybe it's, I don't know, Madonna. Find that song that's like your soul. And how about you take a moment every time you got to pay your bills to visualize that you are writing out the very last piece. Every single time you're paying down something, pretend that it's the last time you're ever going to have to write a check for debt. How freaking fun would that be, right? To be like, this is the last check I'm ever going to have to write. I know it's not true. I know it's not quote unquote reality, but just play with it and then get up, blast the music and dance around and jam out as if that's the reality. And how good would that feel? How good would it feel to do that? Probably really freaking good. Because here's the thing, when you start to visualize, the brain, our subconscious mind, does not know the difference between real and imagined. It does not know the difference. You are imagining on a daily basis all sorts of things, and probably things on autopilot, and probably some things that you don't want in your life, and probably some things that are pretty negative. You know, if you've ever been, maybe flying on planes makes you really scared. I'm sure you imagine like the moment that the plane is gonna crash and everybody's freaking out and screaming and things are flying down and face masks. Like if you can get your heart rate up to the point where you're sweating and you're anxious and you're having like a panic attack, if you could do it to that level of emotion on the negative scale where you're putting your life on the downswing where you don't want it to go, you could do that on the other end of the spectrum where you really step into what if things were perfect? What if I went to the airport and I went to check in and they said, "Oh, hi Michelle, we would love to give you an upgrade today. You were randomly selected for an upgrade to first class." What if that happened instead? Well, guess what? If you're imagining the plane crash, hopefully that does not become a reality, because we don't live in a universe where you think it and it instantly becomes a reality, because there's a lot of energy, a lot of people all co-creating together, so it takes a little bit of time for things to come through, which is a good thing. Otherwise, we'd all have to walk around being very careful what we think about. But right, you've got to put that emotion behind your visualization. So that's why I'm telling you to, especially if you're new to this, maybe you're somebody who really can sit and visualize what it would look like. Maybe bringing in some music would really help kind of call upon your auditory senses. Think about, if you're going to pay off that last piece of debt. I was playing around with some of my one-on-one clients with this the other day. I was like, let's say you just sold out your launch. You sold out your launch. What are you going to do to celebrate? And they were like, I don't know, probably go out to dinner. I'm like, great. I want you to figure out what the last day where you're going to close your launch. You're going to book an appointment at that, or book a reservation at that restaurant. Go in your closet today and pick out the outfit that you're going to wear. Let your boyfriend, your husband, whoever know that you are going to be going out on this Friday night because you're going to be celebrating a sold out launch. Like, we were playing this game and they're like, oh yeah, I never thought about doing that before. How fun. Like, how cool is that? And to actually plan for a great success. People do it with weddings all the time, where they plan this beautiful day because they know it's going to be a great success. They buy flowers, they do this. They're not like, I hope the other person decides to come and marry me. I hope he shows. I hope all my family comes. No, they're planning a wedding because they know people are going to show up because they've set that intention, right? So why should anything else be any different? And even when you're setting goals, really important piece, and this will be a great thing for you guys to do as a little assignment, a little homework. When you're writing down goals and you're writing them as if they've already happened, it adds a lot of power and momentum. Most people will write down their goals and they'll say, I really want to pay off debt. Well, that's a shitty goal. That's not a fun goal. That's got a lot of heaviness to it. It's focused on the debt. Instead of saying, I want to pay off my debt, you say, I'm so grateful that on December 12th, 2017, I became financially free and added an additional $30,000 to my savings account. Wouldn't that be a more empowering thing to read on a daily basis if you read your goals over every day? That goal has a lot of positive momentum to it, whereas the debt one still focuses on the debt. So just be careful when you're writing them and make sure that you write them as if they've already happened, as if they've already come to pass, and write them in the positive frame. So if you're talking about debt, talk about financial freedom. If you're talking about, I hope I get more clients, talk about, I'm so grateful that I have clients, right? And congratulate yourself. Get excited, dance around, do your thing, get excited that you've already accomplished these goals, okay? Because the brain, the subconscious mind does not know the difference between real and imagined. Does that make sense? Cool. So the last piece to this is I want you guys to start creating space. So with your acting as if, we want to make sure that you're creating space to allow in this new level of abundance. So if you're a business owner and your desk looks like shit and it's covered in stuff, or you haven't gotten a new computer in about 3 years and it's glacially slow and you can't get anything done, or you haven't upgraded your